All right, everybody, we are here to talk about OU dominating Nebraska. Your host, Chris Griffin, aka Chris with a K, and that guy, Preston Grant from the PG Show. What's up, PG? Well, go ahead. Just tell us what you think, man. Go ahead.
Man, I'm excited. We got to watch some. Y- yeah, you know what? Watching this team today go out there and completely stomp a mud hole in Nebraska, turn down all the doubters. Man, it just made me excited. I was a little nervous, and you saw it in the group chat. The first couple plays, I was a little nervous, but it was a different environment for Dylan Gabriel and a lot of these players. I think a lot of us forget that even though we're in the Big 12 and OU holds 85,000 people, the average Big 12 stadium, I think, would probably hold somewhere between 40 or 50,000. So this
Mhm.
might be the biggest road environment that OU has played on since Ohio State. You think that's right? Ohio State?
Could be, yeah, possibly.
Yeah, so the dog's trying to get all over me right now. I don't know what it is. But yeah, no, I mean, this is the first big road environment that they've played in since Ohio State. And this is the biggest place that Dylan Gabriel's had to play in. Remember, Dylan Gabriel coming from the American Athletic Conference, playing at UCF, like he's not playing in stadiums this big, this loud, this hostile of an environment. Now I know people will say, "Oh, you Texas, that's a completely different environment in and of itself," but yeah, I was really impressed with a lot of things. I still think there were a couple things that the team could definitely work on. And I want to see the second stringers when they come out. I want to see them do more than just run the ball. I get it. You're trying to run the clock down. You're trying to control the game at that point. But I want to see a little bit more from Bevel and some of those guys. And I feel like when they put them out there, they're just being extremely conservative. And I don't know how I feel about that. But overall, the defense really stepped it up after that. The first couple of drives, we really held Anthony Grant, which, if you guys have been following me a lot, I actually think Anthony Grant could potentially be in the Heisman finalist. I think he's that good this year. He is shown to be that good. So, and it doesn't look like the real high quarterbacks this year are, making a run for that either. So, yeah, I thought overall they did a good job. I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any much more to say than that.
Man, I'll just jump in here and say, man, I was really pleased with what I saw today. Coming into the game with the emotions, how they came out, and just kind of, it was the perfect storm for them. It was the perfect storm for them to come out there and just do things that were just basically off the wall. But I talked to one of our guys, Steven. Shout out to Fanatic Perspective, horns down always. But hey, shout out to Fanatic Perspective. But I will say we talked about it in our group chat and we said, hey, both of these games today, the game between OU and Nebraska, the game between Texas and UTSA, this is about culture. One team is basically saying, "Hey, we're starting a new era. This is a business trip. Let's keep it business like. Let's go out here and let's cover and do what we need to do." The other team is like, "Hey, can we be consistent? Is this what the new culture for us looks like? Is this the new feel?" Well, just getting back on OU, you're excited that they came in there and after that first touchdown that Nebraska scored, they got settled in, they made adjustments, and the front seven. My uncle, he was like, "Man, I'm not too pleased. I'm not too happy with this 3-man front, but at the end of the day, it worked, and they were able to still, in some ways, stay vanilla out there, which was really good. And they didn't have to really leave any of those coverages, but coverage down the field was really good. They were able to. They were able to really shut down the run game that Nebraska had. Number 9, he got loose a couple of times, but man, it was just damn good football on both sides of the ball. Going towards the offensive line looked the part today. I was definitely excited about the offensive line and what's to come. Morris is a huge plus out there. Guyton looked comfortable. Matoir probably had his best game at guard as well. Hopefully, there's nothing serious about the injury to Chris Murray, but man, offensive line looked really good. I think the only downside with the offense was just a simple fact. Dylan Gabriel had some miscues out there today. A couple of touchdowns that he should have got. We missed two on that one drive. The pass to Farouk and then the pass to Weiss. Needed to put a little bit of air on it on that ball for Weiss to go up there and get it and then not just gun it. But those are things that you put on tape and you say, hey, this is what we got to improve on. Then also some of the coverage sacks or whatnot, I feel like he's gotta figure it out as far as what is he going to do with that, because he's a little bit too indecisive. But other than that, man, it was a complete game on both sides of the ball, and I was really happy with what we were able to see. And then even late when the second string did come in, although they didn't do as much as I think either of us would have liked, they were still able to move the ball fairly well. So definitely pleased with that.
Yeah, I agree with Dylan Gabriel. He went 16 to 27. He didn't look as accurate as maybe he has in the previous couple weeks. And I mean, a lot of that's going to be due to you are playing better competition. I know people want a dog on Nebraska because, well, the Big Ten, honestly, this week is just struggling. But I guess, you are playing better competition, and he's not going to be the quarterbacks that we've had of past here at Oklahoma, right? He's not the 5-star dudes. I mean, let's be honest. Dylan Gabriel's not a number one, maybe even a first-round pick. He might be a good third or fourth-round pick, but he's not going to be a first-round pick. At least I don't think so. I don't see it. But he's a good filler until, we can get the right quarterback back into the system. Because multiple times I sat there and I actually tweeted it out at one point, and then they threw it right in my face, and I said I want to see Theo Weiss get the ball more.
Yeah.
At one point, he only had one reception, and I'm like, and still, even when I go look at the box score and I look at the game, like it was distributed pretty evenly across the board, but Marvin Mims only had 4 receptions. Like, I want to see Marvin Mims having at least 7 receptions a game. And then additionally, I want to see Theo Weiss either having 7 to 5 to 7. Like, those are your 1 and 2 receivers outside of, hey, like I've got to go to Drake Stoops when it's a 3rd and short or a 4th and short, or I'm down in the red zone. Like, other than that, those 2 guys should be getting the primarily a lot of your targets and receptions. And again, we kind of see him being lapsed, and we see him kind of hitting the run game. And I don't know if that's BV and Jeff Lebby not wanting to continue to open up the playbook, and they're kind of wanting to still hide some stuff, because let's be honest, you don't have to open up the whole playbook for Nebraska. You're still going to have to open up a little bit, but you don't have to open up the whole thing. You still have Kansas State coming up, which Kansas State's going to be a really tough test. Like, their defense is going to be really good. And then you've got to go play Texas and Iowa State, which Iowa State was putting on a clinic today. So I'm curious to see if this is going to be a theme we're going to see all year, where it's just going to be primarily run heavy, or if we're going to be able to see some of these receivers start hitting, 7 or 8 receptions a game, kind of like what Marvin Mims had last week.
Yeah, no, and I think that you will. I think that it's kind of a play by feel. You go in there with your script. You go in there with what you think is going to work off of just the preparation that you excuse me. You go in there with your script. You go in there just basically to fill it out, at least those first few snaps or whatnot, the first few drives. Just kind of get a feel for what they're trying to do. Are they doing the same thing that you've seen on tape that you prepared for, or are they trying to do something that's a bit off the wall? But yeah, I mean, I think everybody would love to see Weiss and Farouk get more touches and get more receptions. But at the same time, you gotta do what you gotta do with what the defense is giving you. You got to make do with that. But definitely was excited to see Weiss get in the end zone. Definitely was excited to see him make some things happen with the ball. I thought that coming off that slant, I was not expecting him to get a 31-yard gain on there, but he made a couple of moves that made some dudes miss. And I thought he was about to turn around a corner, similar to like what we saw from CeeDee Lamb in that Texas game back in 2019? Yeah. So all in all, a great performance. I think one thing we definitely would say as well is, man, give it up to 8. Give it up to Dylan Gabriel. I didn't think he had wheels like that. That was a hell of a touchdown. But definitely excited about it, man. What do you think? What did you think about that first touchdown drive for Nebraska?
That's what got me worried, right? All week, I thought to myself, and I told everybody, hey, this Nebraska team is going to play motivated. They could come out there and be a really dangerous team because you could see a Mark Whipple that is not being hindered by Scott Frost be able to go out there and call whatever plays he wants and be able to, score all over Oklahoma. Well, of course, the first drive, like they go down there, they score, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't look good. I thought it looked impressive, and I thought, okay, Nebraska's going to make this a game. But then 2 or 3 drives later, like, again, the question I asked earlier in the week is what's going to happen when Nebraska gets down big? They've played so many close games over the past couple of years. They're comfortable in that. So what's it going to be like when they get down 21-0 or whatever that looks like? Are they going to be able to have the adversity to go in there and fight and come back from that? Or are they just going to kind of give up and lose? And ultimately it looked like they got down 21-7 and they just kind of gave up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It looked like it looked like they knew that they were out talented and that OU's defense was just bigger because it looked like the first couple of drives they weren't really getting to the quarterback, and then all of a sudden Jonah Lulu gets back there, which I was really excited to see that Ethan Downs is getting back there, and all of a sudden, like, I think just the demeanor for Nebraska completely changed. The Parker Thune even tweeted it out at one point. The life was sucked out of the stadium at 21-7. So, there was a lot changing, and Nebraska fans, you just got to make the right hire. If you make the right hire and you do the right things, like, their program will come back. But they still have to be there to support their team, which they do. I credit them that, because I'm going to be honest, I don't know very many teams that have the kind of season that Nebraska does and continue to show up and sell out their stadium.
Nebraska came out all jacked up on Mountain Dew. I mean, they were juiced up. They were ready for this game. And at first you look at it and you're like, okay, that's what you expect them to do. Air the ball out, couple of runs, air the ball out. And they tried to be more physical, but man, I don't know what's going on, but hell, it's like Smitty makes such a difference in a game like this because you saw it. You listen to Gabe and Teddy during the week. You listen to a lot of some of the better analysts out there as well. And what do they say? Hey, that offensive line, that defensive line, they both get gassed. All you have to do is stay disciplined and do what you need to do, and that's what OU did. OU was the more disciplined team, and they were the more physical team, especially on each side of the line of scrimmage. I like I said, man, I can't say enough about the defense in this game. They made a lot of plays out there. Aguabu looks different. Billy Bowman looks different. Stutzman looks like he's just continuing from where he left off last year. Defensive line looked really good. At first, wasn't really loving the 3-man front, but then again, you saw that they were able to get home. Redmond, the transfer from Hawaii that you were saying, Downs was back there. I mean, give it up for Kanik as well. Kanik was he was getting home. I think the biggest thing for him is to take that next step and be able to finish now instead of just having those arm tackles, because next week with Deshaun White being out for at least that first half, you're going to have to rely heavily on Kanik, and most likely you'll see a lot more of Harrington, I think, in those first 2 quarters until Deshaun White gets back, which honestly, I don't really see us having a drop off at those positions. I think that Harrington and Kanik are both physical enough to really try to handle what K-State is going to present to you. But man, like I said, hats off to the defense today because they play lights out.
Now, does White have to sit out for a half next week, or because he did have to sit out the whole second half? So does he still have to sit out the half next week?
Oh, that is true. Well, yeah, since it happened in the first half, right?
Yeah, it happened right at the end of the first half.
Yeah, he'll be back. He'll be back then. Excuse me. Okay. That's a good catch. That's a good catch.
Yeah, so he'll probably be at that. However, though, Kanak showed us that he can play in that cheetah role. Mm-hmm. And we all knew he could because that man is athletic and he's a beast. But I do wonder if you start to see Kanak maybe take some of those snaps away from White in that cheetah role as the season goes on, and you need somebody that's maybe a little bit more speedy back there. Because remember, next week you have to go up against Deuce Vaughn, which is a guy that could potentially go win. I mean, like, this is a guy that really could go win the Heisman. Like, he is that good of a quarterback. He's going to be, or a running back. He's going to be playing on Sundays. And
I
so
think I think
you might need a connect back there.
well, I think one of the things that we were successful with it last year because he didn't really have that big of a game against us last year. I know the other 2 years he had been a problem for us, but I think with this defense here, no matter who's back there, Canick, Deshaun White, Harrington, I think they're all physical enough to go out there and put a hand on him. Excuse me, put helmet to helmet. Like go get him. They're going to tackle him. And I think this team here is disciplined. I mean, it's the same thing that we said year in and year out in the Lincoln era. Just be disciplined, be physical. Those were two things that were missing from our team. Those are two things that we have this year. At least that's the way I feel after this Nebraska game.
Yeah, so can we talk about that real quick? And can we
Yeah.
just talk about the difference between this year and last year in that game? Because this should have been the kind of score we should have expected last year in Norman.
Yeah.
And I would
Yeah.
have expected the score last year to be this year in Lincoln. And that is the difference between the two coaches. And it was talked about multiple times on the broadcast. Like, and not only that, but you saw players like Isaiah Thomas and Nick Manito tweeting and say, man, BV came 1 year too late. Could you imagine what this team would have looked like last year if BV would have been there?
Yeah.
And it's the freaking truth. Like I saw an interesting stat at the end of the game. OU has not won 3 straight games to start the season by 30 plus points since 2007. And Lincoln Riley was here, 6-7 years?
Yeah.
With those explosive offenses, and he couldn't do that. Like, I don't like the discipline between the team now and what it previously like it looks like. I mean, just the idea of having to run through the end zone on a kickoff, everybody having to run through the end zone on a kickoff and not just getting to run off the field, like stuff like that. Like, the little things are important, and it really shows on the field, and it showed today.
Yeah, it definitely showed today. It showed up time and time again, and you got to see some of the depth that they have and some of the depth that they're trying to build as well at key spots. Like I said, man, today was just a great overall performance on both sides of the ball. I always give out my grades. I think overall, I would still give them probably I would give them a B. I would give them a B, not an A, because there were some things offensively and defensively I think you could have done a little bit better. But at the same time, I'm pleased with what I saw.
Yeah, I would give him a B plus, and here's why. You're playing a Power 5 Big Ten team. It's your rival. Like, they should have I get it. Like, they're not the best team, but it's still Nebraska. It's a rivalry. Like, and I know people are going, oh, well, we haven't been in the same conference. Like, we're not playing. No, like, it's still a rivalry game. And, those are tough to play in. And these guys are still physical. Like, I feel like this Nebraska team, as the season goes along now with Mickey Joseph at the helm and Mark Whipple calling plays, they're going to get better. I'm hoping that this team gets to 6 wins. I'd really like to see Nebraska make a bowl game. So I'm going to give them at least a B plus, because OU showed that they can go be physical, and that they, because I mean, what was the spread on this game? I think it was 10.5 at kickoff.
I thought it was 12 and a half.
I thought it was 11 the other day, and I thought I heard someone say it was 10.5, so it might be 12.5. All I know is the spread was incredibly low for this game. And the OU players came out there and showed just how physical they can be, how they can control the game. And I thought that was really important on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm. No, man, I mean, like I said, man, Venables had a great game plan. Him and Roof had a great game plan today. I mean, it was great. And they were able to shut down that. I mean, let's be real. Even though we know Nebraska as a whole isn't the greatest right now, that offense is still can be high powered at some times. But at the same time, you were able to come down there. You were able to come in there and take away what they wanted to do, which was pass the ball. You saw them with a lot of quick screens, running a lot of the quick pass game early on, and then afterwards they wanted to try to go vertical or whatnot. And then all of a sudden, I know those like 2 of those drives are just sack, tackle for loss. I mean, back-to-back plays. I mean, Casey Thompson, coming into this game, if you get on all the Twitter spaces, if you get on, just get on Twitter, period, you would see, oh, Casey's going to carve y'all up like he did last year and this and that. I mean, it just didn't happen today. It didn't go his way. Casey Thompson's still a really good quarterback to me. No problem with him. I think that Nebraska at times they show flashes that, hey, we could be a good team, but we're just always playing behind the 8 ball. So with that being said, like I said it last week against Kent State, even against UTEP as well. OU has came out and yet again they've shut teams down and stopped teams from being able to run what they actually want to run. They've had to adjust to this defense and to the physicality of the defense, and then also just the discipline of the defense. So nothing to toot our horns about, because hey, we went up there and we did exactly what we were supposed to do. Take care of business on this business trip. Next week is K-State. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. It's a night game under the lights at the Palace. Got to be ready, got to move on, 24-hour mentality. This is great here, but hey, there's still some things to clean up. But man, I just go right back to, for some of the new people who are coming in, I go right back to Dillon Gabriel. When Dillon Gabriel has everything firing on all cylinders, the sky is the limit for this team. The sky is absolutely the limit for this team.
Yeah, if OU plays like they did today throughout the Big 12 schedule, and I say this because I was keeping an eye on that Baylor game, and Blake Shapen over the past 2 weeks has not looked as impressive as we all thought he might. Mm-hmm. If OU plays like they did today, all season throughout the Big 12 schedule, you could very well see an undefeated OU team make the playoffs this year. Like, this is a very real possibility. Now, next week is going to tell us a lot. Like, next week's going to tell us, hey, can OU play with the big boys? Because Kansas is one of the best teams in the Big 12 this year. They're just that good this year. They really are. So, that next week's going to be the telling tale. But I do think if OU plays like they did today, I mean, they're a college football playoff team. Now, I don't know if they win. I don't know if they win anything in the college football playoffs, because, quite honestly, I think Georgia's leaps and bounds above everybody else. Bama is Bama. They're going to show up. And then if you have to play, I think our best matchup would have to be Clemson.
So here's what I have to say about K-State, okay? So just looking ahead at K-State, one of the reasons why we've struggled with K-State so much is because we were not the more disciplined or physical team. It goes back to the same game plan, same scheme that that a bunch of teams ran against us last year. It was a blueprint game. Those blueprint games, I talk about those all the time. Run the ball, pick up 4 to 6 yard gains, get to the 40-yard line, and then everything else is just kind of fair game. We'll go for it on fourth down. We have absolutely nothing to lose. With K-State this year, with K-State, one of the problems that we had is that we shifted way too much. We shifted, we twisted, we stunted way too much, and we were basically going out of the play. They would telegraph what play they were going to run, and then we had problems really adjusting to that. And no slight to Grinch, because those games were still pretty much highly contested, except for that one odd game that I still say to this day we got cheated on when who was it? Trajan Bridges, I believe, he got the onside kick, but they said they called it offsides. But nevertheless, man, I believe that we will be the more physical. Obviously, I believe we'll be the more talented, but we'll be the more physical team next week. K-State climbing, they come in here, they always try to throw the entire kitchen at us. Not just the kitchen sink, the entire kitchen. They open it up. They open the playbook up, and they try to do all that they can. But I don't think that you're going to see sloppy tackling, the linebackers losing sight of Deuce Vaughn in the backfield with, just because of his height and all the rest of that. You're not going to see that. You're going to see laser focus, and you're going to see a physical team come out there and do what they do best, which is, what we've seen these past 3 games, I'll be honest with you, is just dominate. Hasn't been the flashiest, hasn't been still is not what we're going to call grade A football, but at the same time, man, it's damn near getting close. And this is going to be a scary team for a lot of teams to play going down the stretch.
Yeah, and going down the stretch is going to be our biggest games. Oklahoma State, Baylor, and I'm really curious to see what those teams look like at that time. And it didn't look like Oklahoma State's back seven was too good in that first game against Central Michigan, and it looks like they've
Uh-huh.
kind of picked it up a little bit now. I mean, obviously they're only playing. I would say Arizona State is a decent opponent, and then this week they're playing. I don't they're playing a high school team. So I'll be curious to see what Oklahoma State's back seven looks like as they hit conference play. But
Yeah.
I think there's a chance that DG and the wide receivers really have a chance to show out when they hit. Because, I mean, I don't think you're going to struggle against Kansas this year, especially since it's at home. I don't think you should struggle against Iowa State with there being a new quarterback and a new system there. I mean, you do have to deal with that defensive lineman. I can't think of his name. I don't know. OU should just build. I feel like OU should be. This is the first year I've thought OU should be able to run through the Big 12, no problems asked.
Yeah. And I mean, you're going to see adversity is going to hit at some point. Adversity hit today whenever we went out there 3-and-out on the first drive, and then boom, they score a touchdown, and then here we go, you know. But at the same time, man, I just have a belief in the staff of what they're preaching and how they're coaching. And I think that you're seeing it on display. The technique is being emphasized more than just the skill, more than just the stars that they had coming out of high school. You're seeing technique, you're seeing true development. And I know there's USC fans and some other critics that would say, well, don't talk about Grinch because Grinch's defense is playing well. But I still feel like at some point when you get as the season goes on and as they play more games, 6-7 games, I think that you will see what OU is doing and what the difference is, man. It was music to, I think, everybody's ears hearing the way Joe Klatt, Gus Johnson, Urban Meyer, Reggie Bush, the entire Big Noon kickoff panel, the way that they talked about OU and how this team has a different feel, how they look different, how they look the part. Those are important things going forward for a program like this because, was it Matt Hester? I don't know who it was. It's an ESPN analyst. He was doing a pod, and he was just saying that this is a game that's going to tell us a lot about OU and or Nebraska. He's like, with OU, just to focus on OU, he was saying, man, they haven't really done anything. They're at 6, but they've been silent. They haven't done anything to really give us a reason to give them any attention. And I was like, well, hopefully this will show something to you today. I don't think that this was a statement game, but I think that you made a couple statements, small miniature statements with this type of performance just by showing the rest of college football that, hey, we're here. We're taking care of business. We can play however you want. You're going to have to deal with us if you want us to go away.
Do you want to know what I think is going to tell us a lot about OU? I think what's going to tell us a lot about OU is next week. Next week, you go back home to the Palace. You play Kansas State at 7 o'clock. It's a night game. Probably going to be an emotional win. The week after that, you have to go to TCU, which is a team you shouldn't struggle with. You should be able to beat TCU. These are the games that OU typically would struggle in or potentially lose, where you have an emotional win. You're coming off Texas going into Kansas, or, like next week, you're going to come off Kansas State, which, and I know we're highlighting Kansas State a lot, but folks, you really have to remember Kansas State is really good this year. So you're coming off that game. You have to go to Dallas. What are they going to look like? Are they going to act like this is going to be easy for them? Are they going to come out there acting like, well, we're just the better team, like they have in previous years? Or are they just going to come out there and, like you said, treat it like a business trip, come out there, do your job, and go home?
Yeah. I mean, that's what you want. That's what you're wanting them to do. I think shout out to our guy, Jonathan Lewis, college football with Jonathan Lewis. Definitely follow him. Waiting to see how this staff and team reacts against a hard-nosed game where nothing is going your way. How will that look as such a young staff and team? So here's my thing, my counter to that. I think you kind of saw that last week against Kent State in the first half when things just really weren't going the offensive way. You were able to adjust or whatnot. And Levy even came out in his post game and in his presser, his Nebraska presser. He basically said, yeah, no, there's some things I could have cleaned up. There's some things that I could have got going. But like I said, all in all, I think that you've seen some of that already. Hell, I think you saw some of it today, but I think for the most part they'll be fine. Let's go ahead and bring in JP Indy Sooner. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's up, fellas? How we feeling?
Doing good. Doing. Hey, I'm excited. PG, you happy with what you saw today?
Yeah, I'm happy about it. So I'm curious to hear both of your guys' opinions on this. So that first drive or the first couple drives obviously looked a little rough for OU. Do you think that Jeff Lebby kind of thought to himself in the back of his mind, "Oh, let me pick up where we were the past 2 weeks and see if we can get away with running kind of a very vanilla play call scheme before he really wanted to dive more into the playbook?" Do you think he thought he could get away with that, or at least try to see if he could get away with it?
I was wondering if both sides thought that the
Yeah.
first drive, because we saw a lot of the same things that we saw at OU the first couple of weeks on that very first drive, and then it seemed like it changed instantly. And then offensively, I don't know if I would say that offensively. I wonder if they just kind of figured it out and got it together. Obviously we saw some different things, especially with a lot more RPO stuff than we had been running. We saw a lot of jet motion, runs off of that jet motion. But other than that, I just feel like it was about the offense just finding their rhythm more than it was. I felt like we got super exotic.
This is the best that Gray has ever looked in the OU uniform, to be honest with you. And I still think that he has some things that he could clean up as well. But man, Majors, Gray, hell, even Javante Barnes was able to run the rock really good, really well today. Um, I do kind of think, yeah, they were trying to be as vanilla as possible. I still don't think that you put too much on tape. I still don't on either side of the ball. I don't think that you put a lot out there for a lot of teams to try to figure out, because if you think about it, they really simplified the offense and just started running a lot of slants and a lot of just kind of um, yeah, just a lot of slants, to be honest with you. Slants this way, slants that way, and I mean, a couple of times you saw some pretty unique routes. But man, hey, that pass that Gabriel, the pass that he threw to Farouk, that was something nice. That was different. I was like, yeah, I think I think as OU fans, we are just spoiled with some of the quarterback play that we've had over the years. We've had some damn good quarterback play. And I mean, obviously we can go back as far as Bradford if we want to go there and make that the starting point. But I mean, just to go from Baker to Kyler, even Jalen Hurts for the most part, and then Spencer's 2020 year, and then obviously with Caleb, I mean, we're used to a lot of different things. So maybe spoiled is not the right word, but it's like we do feel spoiled. But regardless, though, JP, go ahead, man. Tell us, how do you feel, bro? How you feeling? What's your thoughts about this game?
No, I'm good, and for me personally, I'm really excited to see. So I'm excited to watch it again because, again, as you guys know, and hopefully most of you, looks like in the comments have been around the JP and Trav show. I'm athletic director. We hosted, the biggest cross country meet that we've ever hosted in our school's history today. It's fun, exhausting. I mean, I was up till 1 a.m. last night getting set up and stuff, and then we had it from 8 a.m. to 2 o'clock. And so, I was watching the game in and out. And almost, thankfully we got done with awards right before the game started. Otherwise, I would have been tempted to be like, you know. But no, I'm excited. I'm excited about what I saw. I'm like I said, when I watch the game again, I'm excited to get into the nuances and see how everything happened. But I saw most of the big plays. Obviously again, saw the first two drives, and then obviously, the defense's first possession wasn't like happy, but again, you know, Lincoln is not an easy place to play by any
Mhm.
means, and it's their first road test as a unit. And after that first drive, I'd say they passed with flying colors. So I'm excited, and it's about getting better week by week. And if you think about where we were last year, week 3, versus where we are this year, week 3, I think a lot of Sooners fans will take it.
I think that we're ahead of the curve or at least the curve that we probably set for this team. I think we're ahead of that curve, but you're just wanting to see what now, where next, like how far can this team really go?
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is that it's the simple fact that even though there are things that we want them to clean up, I mean, they're still playing pretty damn good football. They're
Right.
not turning the ball over. They're not yeah, they're it's just clean football all around.
I was just thinking the same thing, Chris. For as good as we played, we still obviously weren't perfect, and that's okay, right? You're not going to be perfect every week, but to think that we still left some things out there, and again, I get it. Everybody was like, nobody's high on Nebraska. We know the things they're going through with Scott Frost, but again, you still went to a hostile place in Lincoln, Nebraska, a team that was determined to pull out something and prove something regardless. And they're not super duper talented, but you know what? They still have very good players. Or not. Excuse me. They're still a Power 5 team, Big Ten, right? They're not just cupcake, run of the mill, whatever. Like they have big guys on both sides of the ball, offensive line, defensive line.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily just wanting to get pushed around, and we have to come in there and impose our will. And I believe that's what both sides of the ball did, especially up front. And that's how we dominated the way we did, because both offensive and defensive lines dominated after really that first series. I mean, the offensive line played the best game, obviously, that they played this year. And,
Yeah.
that's what you wanted to see, because there were certainly some concerns with the first 2 games. But I think overall, not that they're alleviated, but I think a lot of Sooner Nation is probably breathing a little bit better with what they saw. And I don't know if that's Wanye coming back. I don't know if that's Caden Tower feeling healthier. Maybe it's a little bit of both. I don't know. But yeah, I'm pretty happy.
I mean that's a point of interest right there, because I think that the only part, I mean the only part of this team, bless you, that a lot of people have been really critical about is the offensive line. Particularly I think Matuar and Guyton. But today they made headway, they made room, and you were able to see those and the running backs. They took care of their job as well. They were able to win those one-on-ones. My uncle and I, we couldn't help but to laugh about it, because hey, guess what? Eric Gray's juke move, it finally worked. He caught a couple of people with it for some touchdowns. So
He went left, one guy went right.
yeah, you were just excited about what you saw from them, and you saying, okay, if this offensive line plays like this, yeah, we're gonna be okay. So and that's the whole part. That's all a part of it as well. I think that when Dylan Gabriel is able to fire off on all cylinders, and his offensive line is playing like how they did today, and they can get better. Don't get me wrong. There's still a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah.
This offense is going to be scary, especially when they start implementing and adding more of what Levy is really wanting to do in this game. It's going to be dangerous out there.
Yeah, no, this Oklahoma team is going to be really dangerous, especially if the offensive line continues to improve and get better. And I think they will. Schmitty's working with them, and Schmitty only had one off season, so expect some up and downs this year. Over the next couple of years, I expect that offensive line to get back to being the offensive line that we expect here at OU. But yeah, I mean, if that offensive line continues to be as dominant as they were today, we'll be fine. And Unfair Sports said it, but yeah, I mean, Guyton played well. I mean, even if you take that out, he played really well. So
JP, what are your thoughts on the K-State matchup next week?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be the first real test. K-State is good. they're still K-State compared to Oklahoma, right? I mean, we still should expect to come in and dominate. Now, I'm not saying we're going to beat them by, 3 scores. I mean, maybe a 2-score game. I don't know. But, I know that Chris Kleiman has obviously, his coaching pedigree. You know what he did in North Dakota State. And he's clearly started to, impress his will upon the Kansas State football program. And I believe this is his 3rd year, if not 4th. So, we know how well coached they're going to be. And they have, a potential first-round draft pick on the defensive line. And so, I'm excited to see how Harrison, I don't know where he lines up in particular. I'll have to do some research this week, but and his name is skipping me right now as well. But wherever he lines up, if he's over Harrison, if he's over Guyton, maybe they put him over Guyton because they feel like Guyton is worse than Harrison, which certainly he's not saying he's bad, but he's not as good as Anton. Anton's been pretty good at that left tackle spot. So that's going to be really the first real test, I think, for that offensive line in terms of the type of player that you're going to see on Sundays. And you're going to wonder, hey, are we going to be able to hold up well? Is Dylan going to be able to, hold up well after getting some pressure? Still, it seems like through 3 games, if he gets pressure, and any quarterback, when they get pressure, they're not going to be perfect, but he seems a little antsy, and I think that's normal. He's still getting used to it and everything like that. But, hopefully we can keep him clean for the most part. And, I mean, I'd be cool with it if he wants to run for another 60-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
That was, pretty cool to see that.
And I reminded me of Caleb Williams last year.
Yeah.
I think that the key to the game, honestly, at least early on, is setting the tone with our run game. If our run game is on and we're able to run, it's going to open up a lot of different things. And I don't necessarily know if they have anybody in their secondary that can stay with Marvin Mims. I think Marvin Mims is obviously through 3 games this year, he's been nothing but electric. And I think one of the things as well is that Farouk, for the limited amount of touches that he's had, Farouk is still over there winning his one-on-one battles, and he's running wide open down the field. It's just we got to get the ball to him. But at the same time, I think that you'll see the talent show, and I think this will be another step in the right direction for this team. And I think that you'll see the steady improvement, and you'll just see more improvement week to week, just like we saw this week. And I guess one of the last questions I have for you guys is, with the final score being what it was and the way OU went out there and dominated, did that surprise you at all?
No, I expected I expected OU to come out there and do this year, even early in the season. I know there were a lot of questions about Scott Frost and what this team would be this year, even with Mark Whipple coming in, but there was I think in my mind, there was this always looming doubt of it's Scott Frost. And until that team moves on from Scott Frost, they're not going to be a good team. And so I'm not going to say I expected a 42-point blowout or whatever it was, but I definitely didn't expect this to be a close game. I probably expected about a 24-point win, even though I was calling for a 52-10 victory. I thought 24 points. If you walked out of there and won by that much, that would probably been a healthy margin of victory.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised in a good way too. I thought, now look, through these first 2 games, what you hadn't said about Nebraska is that, they weren't going to be able to score the ball. Their offense at least was decent, right, through the first 2 games. Their defense, on the other hand, was a problem. And so we knew we were going to be able to have our way on offense. But, for our defense, especially after that first drive, to clamp up the way they did, I mean, that is solid stuff. That is bordering on being really good to elite, being able to do what they did. Because you know what? People give up touchdowns. Bama, Georgia, then always on. Can you make adjustments? Right? Can you swarm to the ball the way you did it before? Right? And that's what they did. That's exactly what they did. They got pressure. They got in the backfield. They got in Casey Thompson's head. Right? I mean, we have 5 sacks, something like that.
Yeah.
around 5, if I'm not mistaken.
I
But
want to say like 4 or 5.
It was 4 sacks.
Yeah.
You had Ethan Downs, Jonah Laululu, Deshaun White, and you had there was somebody else in there, but it was 4.
I thought Ethan Downs was about to get. I thought Ethan Downs was going to get flagged because he suplexed Casey.
Oh yeah. I swear when he suplexed, I was like, oh.
I know. I said, oh no.
So I got one. I got 2 more points, and we'll get up out of here. So first question, and JP, I'll let you go first on this one. What do you need, or what do you want to see from this team moving forward next week against K-State?
I think just consistency in the passing game. I think that there's been times where it's off for a little bit, and then it's on for a little bit, and then it's off again. And you know what? Like, that's gonna happen. But I just said, I remember tweeting out, especially on that drive where Dylan missed a couple of those passes, and it's not a big deal because we're still up 35-7. But it's just like, moving forward, man, we're gonna have to make sure we hit on those, because there are gonna be games where we're not gonna have the opportunity all the time. We got to hit on those opportunities when they're there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
the missed throw to Farouk, right? I know he's gonna want that back. Even he had probably Theo, if he would have lobbed it instead of bulleting it on that left side. And I think those are things that can get cleaned up. And he obviously has the ability, because like you spoke about at the beginning, or when I got in, at least, Chris, was that throw to Farouk. I mean, you can't throw it any better than that. And then same thing when he hit Weiss on that touchdown. You can't throw it any better than that. Both of those throws, I mean, they're where exactly it had to be. And so Dylan can do it. It's just, is he going to be able to continue to be as consistent? And he's been good, like he has been. But is he going to be able to take it to that next level? And I think, if he does, then obviously we all knew we were going to be talking about this team in terms of Big 12 contention and a potential playoff, participant. But then, if he takes it to that level, then you start talking about, okay, for sure, playoff participant. Now, I'm not saying national champion. I'm not going there. I'm not. But, okay, a lock to be in the playoff. And then, hey, you get in the playoff, who knows what happens from there, right? But I think that's where we're going. And to know that our defense hasn't shown a ton, they still are pretty vanilla besides a couple blitz packages. They're playing well. And so, we'll see. They'll still get tested down the road. I think particularly, in my opinion, Texas will be the first big test defensively. Just as far as star power goes on offense, obviously the other teams will be well coached, but they won't have the dudes like Texas has, like a Worthy or a Bijan Robinson. That I think is going to say a lot. But yeah, that's what I would like to see moving forward. Specifically, consistency in the passing game.
PG?
Yeah, so I agree with the consistency in the passing game, because both Kent State and Nebraska have been terrible defending the pass. And even Washington had a really big game against Kent State in the passing game. And I just don't feel like OU has had that big passing game yet. What I mean by that is Dylan Gabriel for 400+ yards. And so I do want to see a little bit more consistency there. And I do feel like against these teams, we should have at least potentially seen that yet. And we haven't seen it. Yeah. But I really think the big thing is, especially next week, is can OU stop the run? Because Kansas State with Adrian Martinez, they're not going to be throwing the ball a whole lot. And in fact, they haven't thrown the ball a whole lot. So far this season, they're averaging 98 yards per pass. They're only averaging 364 yards total offense. And today, Adrian Martinez is throwing the ball a little bit more. But I think that's the big thing. If you can go in there and you can shut down the run with Kansas State, you're going to be able to do whatever you want with them on defense.
I do also want to, real quick, Chris, before you move on, my apologies to Deuce Vaughn. I don't know how I just skipped out on him next week, because you're right. We're going to have to figure out a way to stop that cat. I don't know if they're going to put, Deshaun White obviously is not going to be suspended, but, I'm almost like, man, split him and Connect in snaps the way Connect looked today. But Chris, I'll let you go.
So I guess just going forward next week, I want to see us dominate both lines of scrimmage. offensive line is going to be key in this game. Obviously, we've struggled with their defensive line. Gotta be able to protect the quarterback, give him time. And another thing, Gabriel got to get him to kind of to hit those, not have as many miscues as he had this game. Got to be able to connect with your receivers, especially on some of those bigger plays where they're running, down open down the field. Want to see him be able to step up in the pocket, be a little bit more decisive. If you're going to run with it, run. You don't have to just sit there and take that 2 or 3 yard sack. You know what I'm saying? You can actually just run, which throw it away and live to play the next play. But you take the good with the bad, and you're just happy that he's not turning the ball over, right? Knock on wood. So you're excited about that. Run game's got to be good, but defensively, you want to see them be sound, disciplined, and be able to. And like I said, just be able to be gap sound, be able to play it. Watch out for the running back screens. Keep eyes on Deuce Vaughn. Also, be weary of the quarterback run game as well, because Martinez is definitely mobile. He's very mobile. We know that he's turnover prone. We know all of those things are true, but at the same time, Kleiman is going to have him playing controlled football. So, got to dominate the line of scrimmage, get some sacks, get some tackles for losses, get some hurries, rush him out of the pocket, and be able to play sound defense on the back end of the football. And you just want to see more consistency, like you said, in the passing game. You want to see more consistency there. You want to see a little bit more consistency from the offense overall. You want Levy to kind of come out there and just dominate from the first time we touch the football. Get what I'm saying? Whether we're going offense first or we're on defense first, whatever the case may be, you just want to see that. But a game like this, you want to be the more physical team, the more disciplined team, because that's what K-State has been. Even in the loss last year, that's what K-State was. When they faced us. One of the things I'm excited about, though, against this K-State team is that we all know, and I've said it time and time again, JP, you've heard me say this thousands of times. The true OU team last year under Lincoln, okay, they played during that K-State game. And what did they run? They ran that zone scheme. Mm-hmm. So with Levy, you feel like, we should be able to have some success. What is this guy coming out here for?
Hey, what's up, Ty?
What is he doing?
No, he's coming on to talk about that Will Anderson pick 6 that he just had.
Yeah, I got the headphones on watching the Alabama game on one screen and over here on the other. Figured I'd grace y'all with my presence.
We got you on here for a second. So Ty, Around the Table Sports, has blessed us with his presence. What were your thoughts about this Nebraska game?
Yeah, look, I just put out my video. Bryce just is a magician. He just scored a crazy touchdown. But the takeaway I had is like, look, this is the story of Oklahoma. This isn't the story of Nebraska, right? So like, is Nebraska a world beater? No, but that's not the story of today. When we look at this, Oklahoma's defense showed up to play, right? Whether I look at the stat sheet or not, that's irrelevant. That defense played with more heart, more intensity, more want to than at any point last season, right? And that says something, regardless of what the stats say. Now, when we go look at the stats, they were very good as well. A lot of Nebraska's offense was generated in the very end of the third quarter to the fourth quarter when it was second-string guys, third-string guys in. Really, Nebraska's offense, if we're talking about ones-on-ones, it was their first drive. After that, after Oklahoma got a taste of what Nebraska did, they adjusted exactly what Jay and I talked about, exactly what Indy, Travis, and I talked about when I was on y'all's live stream against Kent State. You had to make an adjustment. You did so flawlessly today. Nebraska comes out, gets their thing. You make an adjustment. You don't even look back. I mean, cruise control doesn't even go to say. The only area I was wrong in this game was 17 points would be the margin of victory for Oklahoma. The correct answer should have been however many points the Oklahoma Sooners wanted to score within the time allowed that game. That should have been the honest answer for margin of victory. So look, I mean, you can't take anything away from Oklahoma in this. I mean, you want to talk about maybe some missed deep balls? Sure. But I mean, that's once again something you're going to work through. And for the first time, we saw Levy open up the playbook, not out of necessity, far from necessity, right? He didn't need to go past page 2. But why not? Whenever you don't want to go to Kansas State next week and need to get to page 4 or 5, and you've never been there. right? Now you're there out of necessity. You want to have those reps. So I mean, you look at this game for Oklahoma, and I don't know where. Like, obviously, we'll rewatch it. We'll have some different takeaways once we rewatch it. But from an initial reaction, Oklahoma showed up to play for 60 minutes, and they looked really good, really, really good. All three levels of the defense look good. Offense looks good. That was my takeaway.
So yeah, no, I definitely agree with it. I thought every level of the game that you played really well as a team, and that you were able to go out there and dominate. I think so. I'll ask you the same question that I asked PG and JP. Were you surprised by the final score, or?
So yes and no, because look, I'm not going to sit here and lie because I picked OU by 17. So I thought Oklahoma would win. And to my credit, whenever we were live, and Indy can back me up here, some people in the comments were saying they thought Nebraska would hit like 24 points. And I kind of stopped it. And I was like, I don't see how Nebraska gets to that point area, right? Like, I don't see how Nebraska is going to get that many points. Did I see Oklahoma scoring at will the way they did? Not necessarily as easy as they got it, right? And in fact, Jay made a great point. He was interested to see how Oklahoma's defense would do because the offense has the ability to score so quickly, right? So you're going to have a lot of games where you're going to be losing the time of possession battle, but you're going to be winning every other battle. And that's just a testament to these high-powered offenses. I said in our group chat, I'll say it for all the people to hear, Levy's offense plus these high-powered offense, they remind me of an avalanche. Once they get started, they are so tough to slow down. They are so tough to slow down.
Yeah. And I mean, he was able to really dissect them, just running the simplest of slants. You got something, JP?
Oh. No.
It reminded me of that Tua offense with Lane Kiffin and the RPO offense, right? I mean, and people thought I was crazy then. If you run a slant right correctly and the quarterback throws it on time, it can be such a simple route, but so tough to stop. I mean, so tough to stop. And that's what we saw today. I mean, it was textbook.
Yeah. Where and everybody can chime in on this now that we have Ty here, but JP, we'll start with you. Where does Nebraska go from here? You probably missed some of our points on Ty's live stream, but I've said, hey, look, Gary Patterson is a no-brainer for me, to be quite frank with you. I think he gets you back into the Texas recruiting grounds, and he brings a certain pedigree to you, and he'll be able to also probably get a really good offensive coordinator to come in there. I don't think the story of Gary Patterson is over yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Gary Patterson is definitely a candidate they look at. I think we have to see how Matt Campbell does this year. I know he was a hot name before, but just depending to see how he does at Iowa State this year. Not saying he's on the hot seat at all. That's not my take. But I know some people have cooled off of him after last season, just seeing how he can bounce back this year. But nah, man, I think Nebraska they have to get somebody that, they thought Scott Frost fit their identity. They have to get somebody that really, truly fits in with who Nebraska was, is, and who they want to be. Like that's how I felt what we did with Brent Venables, right? Like, now we had sustained success, and we're in a completely different stratosphere at this point than Nebraska's been in a long time. We had success with Lincoln Riley, despite the fact that obviously he wasn't, he was a little bit invested, but he wasn't not as invested as we would have liked him to be. Brent Venables is the opposite of that. He's all the way invested, and he fits who Oklahoma football was, and who they want to be. And so I think that for Nebraska, you have to find your identity again, and really get a coach that fits that. I mean, when you get that fit, it matters more than anything else, right? Like Arkansas, right? With Sam Pittman. I mean, what are they doing right now? Yeah. And they don't have half the history. I don't even think they have a third of the history that Nebraska has. You know what I mean? So Nebraska, they have to find somebody that cares enough and it it doesn't have to be somebody that's from Nebraska or even that played there. Obviously, I know again we found that in Venables with him having coached here, but they just got to find somebody that has that mentality. And clearly, Scott Frost is more nostalgic than anything else.
Yeah. PG.
Yeah, I'm loving this Kansas game over here, by the way. Kansas just tied it up 14-14 at Houston. So speaking on that, there's a very good coach right now coaching on Kansas's sideline that I think Nebraska needs to be really looking at, and that's Lance Leipold. Because look at what he's doing with Kansas right now as we're talking. They're playing with Houston with Dana Holgorsen, and this is supposed to be Dana Holgorsen's year. This was supposed to be there. He had it all together. Houston made a run at it, and, well, look at it. Kansas is right in this game. They're potentially could go up 3-0. And if they do that, Lance Leipold's got to be seriously considered for a lot of jobs because, he's doing a really good job with not a lot there at Kansas. So, but Matt Wells is a good option. Obviously, I think Matt Campbell has got to be your number one. This Urban Meyer stuff, I don't know if you want to bring that into your program. I think Urban Meyer's probably going to have to go play at or coach at a lesser program for a while and really prove himself if he wants to come back into elite level coaching. If you're a Nebraska fan, you don't want Urban. And I don't think Urban's going to be able to recruit the guys that you need at Nebraska. You really need to be able to recruit really well in Nebraska and Iowa and a lot of those other states around you in Kansas. And I think Matt Campbell can do that because Matt Campbell's been doing it at Iowa State, or a guy like Kchris, I think you talked about the other day, Gary Patterson.
Yeah. Now, PG, I kind of had to disagree with you on the Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer brings instant star power and credibility. I mean, it's Urban Meyer. No matter how you feel about him with the Jags, Urban Meyer in college football is Urban Meyer. I mean, people talk about how Bob Stoops gift wrapped in a Lamborghini for Lincoln. I mean, hell, Urban Meyer did the same thing for Ryan Day. I mean, I don't know. I think that with the Big Ten money, with what Nebraska would be willing to do, there's a lot of boosters, a lot of different things around Nebraska. I think that he would be able to get in there and turn some things around, and people are going to give him the benefit of the doubt because it's Urban Meyer. His name carries a lot more weight than like a Matt Wells, a Matt Campbell, a Gary Patterson, or that. If you could get him there, you can mess around and have something, and he could be the start of something. Maybe he doesn't finish it, but he could be the start of something, kind of like what he did to catapult or to at least keep Ohio State afloat in the years after Jim Tressel. So.
Yeah, I hear that. I would just be very cautious.
Yeah.
You definitely have to work out things in his contract with his buyout, right? With his buyout, you'd have to be able to take away pretty much all the money in his buyout for off-field, things. I agree that he's going to bring in star power. I just don't know, because here's the thing. Right now, I don't see Nebraska being a team that's going to be a top 10 recruiting class program, even with Urban Meyer at the helm. I think you have to bring in guys that are going to be able to develop that 3- and 4-star talent that is so rich around Nebraska. And maybe Urban Meyer can do that. Maybe he can't. Also, here's the other thing. Are you going to want to send your kid to go play for Urban Meyer? That's the other question. I don't know if parents are going to be comfortable doing that.
Ty, what's your thoughts?
I have the name. Nobody said him. It's Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien has got the experience within the Big Ten at Penn State. He had a successful conquest there, very successful. He then went to Houston, didn't have the opportunity, but now he's had the Nick Saban coaching rehab. Bill O'Brien is the answer here. All right. It satisfies two things. One, Alabama gets rid of Bill O'Brien. Two, I really don't have a second thing. I was hoping something would come to me, but no, in all seriousness, Hugh Freeze is interesting. Genuinely, I think he's a name that doesn't get talked about a lot, but we need to remember Hugh Freeze, man. Like, when it comes to offensive football, that dude knows how to win. Now I must admit, if in all seriousness, like, Bill O'Brien is actually in contention for the job. A lot of sources have said like that is a very real possibility. But the name that I really love that we've talked about is Gary Patterson. Gary Patterson would be my call because Gary Patterson is synonymous with defense in college football. Like if you want to go through and really study the history of defense within college football, a large chapter of that book has got to be dedicated to Gary Patterson, right? Like what he has done with defense, with the nickel defense in particular. And now you look at how many defensive systems that we all talk about with a lot of reverence at this point that really stem from some of the things, some of the base concepts Gary Patterson was putting together. I mean, he is really tied up in this defensive game of college football. I also am biased towards Gary Patterson. I've told Indy this several times. One of my best friends played for Gary Patterson. It was Denzel Johnson, who was with TCU from 2013 on, was first team All Big 12 safety with TCU. Actually was the safety that made that play in the fourth overtime of the Oregon game. Whenever TCU came back to beat Oregon, Denzel's the one that dove and swatted the ball as I just swapped my mic like an idiot. But hearing him break down those TCU defenses, man, like Denzel's a smart dude, first and foremost, like a super smart dude. But I could listen to him for hours talk about those Gary Patterson defenses and really break them down to me. So I got to say, I really agree with you, Chris, here that Gary Patterson is a name. PG, it's interesting because I agree with both of you on Urban Meyer, oddly enough, right? Like this is one where I think if you get Urban, you have to accept the double-edged sword that's now in your hand, right? Because there is no denying Chris's point. Everywhere Urban's been, he's won. Like we can track Utah. I mean, he had that program humming. Then you look at Florida, he had them humming. You look at Ohio State, he had them humming. So there is something very real there. But PG, to your point, there's a lot of baggage that comes with Urban. Is Nebraska the right program for that? I don't know. It's tough because if I was them, we're talking about a bunch of older coaches. I think they'd love to strike gold, find a younger guy that they can kind of take a chance on and keep there for a while. Right. Now, that being said, that's very easy for us to talk about, incredibly difficult to go do. I mean, next to impossible to go do. So where does Nebraska go? Up? And I know I'm not trying to be sarcastic when I say that, but like this is a program that, gentlemen, we were all alive when they were dominating college football. Like it is a distant memory, but it is not so far in the distance that it is completely forgotten. To see where they were to where they are, it's sad. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah. And Chicken, I'm not trying to get on you in the comments, but Mike Gundy is not leaving OSU for anything outside of a top 5 job in college football. If it's not the name Alabama, Clemson, OU, or something that's a top 5 job, he ain't leaving.
But if I may, I kind of feel the same about Campbell. Later, bro.
Later, bro.
Say hello to the wife. But I feel the same about Campbell. Like, I know that'd be a great hire, but I just don't know the incentive he would have to leave Iowa State for Nebraska.
Yeah, Iowa State and
No doubt.
No, Iowa State is on record for hey, we'll do whatever we need to keep him, and I think that they're going to try their hardest to keep him. But hell, I don't know. If Nebraska comes calling, it's such an interesting and intriguing job, and you'll be part of the Big Ten. You're going to have that contract. You're going to be able to do a lot of different things. I think it fits somebody like him as well. I guess one of the things I will say is you have merit in your argument, PG, is the fact of, can you recruit there? Are you going to be able to get into those recruiting grounds where you used to kind of have pipelines or so set up? So that's the reason why I say, hey, a guy that's basically, I wouldn't even say having a resurgence. I mean, hell, he's just basically there at Texas right now. It's Gary Patterson. A lot of people are still going to want to come there. He doesn't have near as much as if any baggage that Urban Meyer has, and he's a great hire. He's somebody that can come and stabilize your program at the very least. Maybe not the first year, maybe not the second year, but he's going to be hella competitive, more competitive than even what you saw today. And a lot of those close games and stuff, the games you're supposed to win, you're going to win those games. And I think that he'll go out there and get a hell of a OC, and you'll see him and somebody else probably taking over on that defense. And I don't know, man. I just feel like the story's not over for Gary Patterson. He's sitting right there, So we'll have to see.
Do you think it's out? I mean, because I've said this for 2 years.
Yeah.
Do you think it's outrageous to try and bring back Bo Pelini?
Look, I don't think it's outrageous, but I don't think it's the move.
No. Yeah.
Because Bo Pelini, in my opinion, if you look at how he talked to the players, I just don't ever think that that's like a lasting recipe. Like, you have got to be a coach that has got a lot of cachet behind you to be in a young man's face yelling at them to the degree Bo Pelini was. I understand it's coaching. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Gainesville. I don't know if y'all know this. The Ryan family can trace its coaching history back to Gainesville, Texas. Rex Ryan's father coached at Gainesville. So, like, we know about hard-nosed coaching where I come from. You still got to be a dude to be in a 19-year-old, 21-year-old, 22-year-old's face screaming at them, and you don't have rings. You don't got that resume. You get what I mean? It's one thing for Nick Saban to do it. Yeah, he's got rings. Okay, yeah, fair. You got to have some sort of resume for these kids to respect you if you're in their face like that. That's Bo Pelini.
Yeah. I don't know. But one thing I will say, I'll point out this. It was a great point by Joel Klatt on his show that he made earlier this week about Nebraska. If you look around the country, Michigan just gave Harbaugh an extension, right? We know that Texas A&M is locked in for better or for worse with Jimbo, I guess just from the outside perspective, right? Ty, you'll see where I'm going with this.
Oh, I'm sorry. My reaction is to the Alabama game, not to what you were saying. I'm so sorry. No. If I have a reaction to what y'all are talking about, it's probably the Alabama game.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. You look at Miami. They got their coach, right? USC. They got their coach, right? So where I'm going with this basically is that Joel Klatt was basically saying, "Hey, look, Nebraska's going to be the job to have this summer. This year. It's the job. It's the premier. It's probably the only premier job that you can get this year outside of probably some of the smaller schools that are going to have openings." So with that being said, I think that it's fair to say that there's going to be some people who this job is going to be desired. It's a desirable job for somebody, for some people out there. And there's probably some coaches out there that we're not even thinking about. Do you think that, I mean, hell, I like the Kent State coach. I liked him. There's some younger coaches out there that you're looking at and saying, "Hey, why couldn't this work?" So I guess the last question I have for you guys, and just be brief if you will. I mean, do you think Nebraska just says, "You know what, screw it, let's blow this entire thing up and start young," or do you think they try to go get a more established coach?
I would try to go get a more established coach. And quite honestly, if they're going to go get Gary Patterson, please do it before the Texas game and pull Gary Patterson out of Texas before we have to go play Texas. Like, please just make my day. But no, I think at this point, if you want to compete quickly, you go get a more established coach. If you want to build your program slowly and you're going to give the coach plenty of time, go with a younger coach. Another name, though, that just came to mind that we're not throwing out, and since we're going to throw out Urban Meyer, and I know this one's not onto the level of Urban Meyer. Nope. Since it's not on the level of Urban Meyer's history and past, but I do think that his name's going to be brought up in some coaching somewhere. Art Briles, he's still out there, and I think he's been coaching at several other places. Does Nebraska give him a second shot?
Hell, you talk about baggage.
Well, that's what I said. If we're going to talk about baggage and hiring coaches with baggage, I mean, why not?
I think there's levels to baggage, though.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean? There's levels to this.
Outed. I mean, he wasn't running a shop like that. But I get what you're saying.
Look, as far as offensive prowess, there's nothing you can say. I mean, you look at the offense those Briles system ran, and PG, to your point, if we are strictly sticking to X's and O's, I mean, there's no taking away from the offense Bryles ran, no doubt.
I will end it here for you guys. If Nebraska goes out there and hires Tom Herman, I'm done with the program completely. I'm just done with it.
I don't think that's the move.
I don't think he's a terrible coach, but also I don't think he's the coach for that job. I've heard that name thrown out there a few times.
Offensive coordinator, though. I mean, you want to talk about a checkmate move. If they could get him an offensive coordinator, that would be interesting.
That's what I'm saying. I would be fine with him being an offensive coordinator.
100%.
You can marry him with Patterson for a year or two and go from there.
You talk about strong pipeline to Texas now.
Yeah.
And if we go back to those 90s teams, they were parked outside of Allen, Texas, man. Like my dad used to tell me. I mean, he would take me to Allen High School games, to Cibola Steel games, because he's like, yo, Nebraska's parked out here. I was 8 or 9 years old, and we're going to these games because this was a hotbed for what Nebraska recruited.
Yeah. Well, guys, college football is on. Ty is over there watching his Tide probably put a foot in the ass of UL Monroe.
We're looking good. They just got a touchdown. We sold out to stop the pass, like a blitz to stop the pass, and that running back just went right in. Good play call by them, but yeah, unfortunate.
My cousin is playing for them. Shout out to Tyrone Howell. Hopefully he has a big game against
that's
y'all.
what's
What's
up.
the score? It's
like 28-7. We've scored off of a Will Anderson pick six, special teams. Now, chicken.
That is actually funny.
No, but I'm not going to lie. Jeff Banks is somebody I don't know about for this job, chicken, but I will give you a lot of credit right now. I do believe that's a name to watch this offseason, as in getting something more like an offensive coordinator job, because that guy can recruit.
Hey, the offensive coordinator for Baylor wouldn't be a bad match.
Or Utah.
Or yeah.
Under Kyle Whittingham for this long. Ooh, Jahmyr Gibbs, go.
So with that being said, guys, tell everybody where they can find you guys. PG, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at the PG Show _. You guys can find me on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify at just the PG Show. And I'll give you all OU fans a little bit of hope here. Notre Dame is struggling against Cal. Peyton Bowen's got to be watching this game. Peyton Bowen to OU in the next couple weeks. Got to happen.
Yeah, that'd be a big time flip. Peyton Bowen, absolutely one of the top safety prospects in the nation. That'd be a really, really nice flip. And he's got the familiarity with Jackson Arnold. So you have to love the fact that your 5-star quarterback's in his ear. Y'all can find me at Around the Table Sports. I do constant college football content. Yeah, that's pretty much all it.
And you guys can find us on Ty's show. You streaming this Monday, right?
Yeah. I was just so tired yesterday, man. Like I uploaded that video and I went to sleep. Like that was it.
I got you. Well, yeah. Hey guys, watch out. Look out for that stream on Monday. It's gonna be a lot of college, a lot of news dropping, a lot of everything. I love that damn stream. So, with that being said, this is the Horns Down podcast. Horns always down. Shout out to Steven though, and we are out, y'all.